Hey, good afternoon, everybody in the Carton Forum, as well as welcome to the Siegwerk team. I think there are three from the Siegwerk team, which is Ramakant, Dhirendra, and Mr. Jatin Takkar. Good afternoon to you as well. So after a long gap, the Carton Forum is now holding online conference on a very, very important and relevant subject, which has come up recently due to government regulation. So we are having good number of participants today, and we hope more will join us. So today we have a speaker on the subject of this plastic lamination and similar products issue because of the government regulation which has come in, and many of us are not very clear and have a lot of questions on the same. So we have got a qualified speaker today, Mr. Jatin Takkar. Welcome, Mr. Jatin. Mr. Jatin is the head of product safety and regulatory from Siegwerk India. Siegwerk, as we all know, is one of the leading ink and varnish and other material supplier to our industry. So Mr. Jatin Takkar is a seasoned professional with over a decade of experience in the food and packaging industries. He has worked across different verticals like operations, quality and food safety, as well as regulatory with strong market players like Nestle, Kraft, Heinz, and Siegwerk. He is working with Siegwerk as head product safety and regulatory. With his expertise in food safety and his passion for ensuring packaging safety, he is heading an awareness campaign across different stakeholders in the packaging supply chain with the goal of ensuring food safety aspects of the packaging material. He has published over 25 authored articles on the subject of packaging safety. He has even represented as a food contact material expert in various national and international forums, presenting his views on subject of food safety and packaging safety. Jatin lives with the motto, ensure safe food for everyone and ensure safe packaging for every food. Thank you once again, Mr. Jatin, for agreeing to give us this talk and share your knowledge on the subject. I hand over to you. Kindly take over and give us your knowledge. Yeah, Jatin, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
It's over to you.
Yeah, just give me a second.
I would just like to add here that while his presentation is going to be approximately 30 minutes, many of us will be having questions. I would request all of you to put down your questions in the chat box, and we can take it up once he finishes his presentation. So we'll have a reasonably 10 minutes or whatever required to answer all your queries.
Tushar, you just need to give me two more minutes. I'm facing some issue with the PPT.
Take your time. So just let me know when you're ready. Meanwhile, I would request the Carton Forum members, if they have something important to share which is relevant, we can have a short dialogue on that right now. Nitin bhai, anything you would like to share?
Yeah, one small message I would like to pass. Everybody must be knowing, but Mr. Vakil Son's Mr. Bimal Mehra's father, he passed away.
Arun Mehta is the name of
his father. Arun Mehta passed away yesterday morning. So Sunday evening is his condolence. I think so. It has been shared on the group. If anybody wants to just attend the condolence meeting, please, they can. Yeah, thank you very much. Now I think so Mr. Jatin is ready with his presentation. Let him start.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Tushar, for this brief introduction. And what I have done is I have tried to consolidate everything that's applicable from a regulatory point of view for the printing and packaging industry. It also considers something related to food safety, but that is just 2 slides. And then I have covered the topic of plastic waste management rules 2016, updated from February 2022. There is a new update just 2 days back. I've not been able to get hold of it. Like, I've not studied that. I have that document, but that is not will be covered, but it is more to do with the biodegradable packaging. So anyways, it's not of much concern. So the last update was from February 2022. And then very particularly, the subject of single-use plastics affected from 1st of July. So that is something very specifically I will be covering in details. And then I'll try to cover up this presentation in 30 minutes, as you mentioned. And then probably if we have any questions, we can take those questions. Yeah. So with your permission, can I go forward? Great. Okay. So just to show the overall regulatory landscape in India with respect to the packaging industry. So the regulation number 1 that comes into force is Food Safety and Standard Packaging Regulation 2018. Now, this is a regulation that is deployed for all the packaging materials, including everything that comes into cartons, that comes into, say, a flexible packaging or narrow web labels. Anything to do with food packaging is covered under this law. The brand owners are primarily these key stakeholders that have to be responsible for the packaging material they place on these shelves. This regulation is unique in terms of the definition of food grade. We have been using the term of food grade for years, but you would be surprised that the word food grade was never defined in the regulation. And this was a reason that anybody could claim anything to be food grade, but this is not the situation now. We have a definition of food grade, which is harmonized with the European regulations, US regulations, China regulations. So it's the same thing that is depicted in those 3 regulations is now depicted in Indian regulation. A lot of people believe that if you do not have a specification listed in the FSSAI regulation, then it does not have any implications for us. This is a misconception, because in the regulation, it is clearly written that if there is any packaging material which is not under the scope of FSSAI regulation, then unfortunately you have to comply to the global regulation. This is a big misconception a lot of industry people have, that probably if their substrate is not listed, they are free to do anything with the packaging material, but this is not the case. Then there are specific guidelines for paper and board, metal, alloys, glass. I'll not get into the details, but I've shared for paper. And then there are different standards for plastic, paper, board, and metal. Just an example to relate to paper and board material, there are certain standards, those are given. So if your paper packaging material does not fall into this category, probably you need to look for an international regulation if existing. Going forward, specific recommendations for packaging materials for the food category has also been suggested in this regulation. Inks, since Siegwerk is an ink company, so would like to mention a few lines on the inks. Inks to comply with IS 15495. Direct food contact of printing inks and food is prohibited. This is another gray area where I receive a lot of requests, where a lot of brand owners and also the converters seek solution for a direct food contact. So where there is a direct contact of an ink and the food product. Kindly note that these kind of applications are prohibited. So if you are doing a straw business and you want to put colors onto that, this is prohibited under law. Yes, we still see these kind of things in the market, but that is due to the poor implementation. As per law, it is completely banned. Apart from this, we also use a lot of coatings. Now, unfortunately, the term used in the regulation is printed surface. So when you use coatings in direct contact with the food, probably you need to get a clear indication from the brand owners that you are not prohibiting. Why? Because the brand owners are the custodians. So they should give the converters in writing, possibly to safeguard the converters, that the printed surface with coating is allowed, because the word used is printed surface, and then it's a gray area. A lot of people ask me, can we use DFC? And I always say, go back to brand owner and try to take a clarification from them. And then overall migration limits, tests for plastics and specific migration limits have been specified. The standard specified is 15495. It is applicable to all kind of packaging. a lot of people have this dilemma that whether it's for primary packaging or secondary, is it applicable to plastics or paper? It is applicable to each and everything that goes into food packaging. So if you're using inks for plastic, paper, labels, anything that has to do with food packaging, it's applicable. And then the key thing is that food grade concept is reiterated here. There is a list of chemicals, around 44 chemicals that are prohibited under law. There are heavy metal restrictions to 100 ppm that is put there. And recent extension includes toluene, TAA, and certain phthalates. So few additions were done in the year 2020. And since I'm a part of this committee, I can just give you an update. More amendments are coming in next 1 to 2 years, including a lot of other things like maybe the photo initiators like benzophenone, EDB, EHA. So a lot of working is going at PIS, and we are bound to see some new amendments coming in next 1 to 2 year time frame. However, Siegwerk is completely updated, and we are fine-tuning our formulations proactively just to be sure that when regulation arrives, we are in compliance with all the regulations. Then something to create a link between environment and food. So recently, FSSAI has clearly showed the intention of use of recycled plastics in general in food packaging. So now this is allowed. However, currently it is limited to only rPET. Sorry. So there is a defined criteria for input recycling process. So now FSSAI has defined the guidelines for at least rPET, and this can be operationalized in India. However, for other plastics, we have to wait for a clearance from FSSAI to share some guidelines on that. Till that time, we cannot go ahead with the recycled plastics for anything else than rPET. So right now it's only rPET. Now I come to the one of the major topics that's around the corner, which is plastic waste management rules. This was revised in February 2022. We also has, as I mentioned, we also have a version that was released on 6th of July. Probably I can give detailed insights later, but right now I've captured the February 2022 version, and more or less the new revised version has only addition of biodegradable clauses and nothing else. So in this standard, the roles and responsibilities for the entire supply chain has been defined. The mandate is to reduce or minimize the generation of plastic waste, not to litter plastic, and ensure segregation. Plastic waste processors. Now this is interesting. You may remember that there was a lot of hue and cry when initially the plastic waste management rules came into picture because of the multi-layered packaging. But then an amendment was done where plastic waste processing includes recycling, waste to energy concept, waste to oil concept, and composting. So now, even if you are sending your plastics to get burned in the cement industry to generate energy, that's also fine. So that's the reason we do not have that hue and cry anymore with respect to the plastic waste usage. Single-use plastic, it is a separate section, as I mentioned, which I'll take in detail on a later part of the presentations. The definitions are clearly listed in this standard, and whenever anyone has to adhere to these regulations, please read the definitions, because a lot of definitions are not exactly the same we would expect it to be. So there are a lot of definitions. I cannot cover everything here, but definitely the recommendation is to go by the definitions very clearly. Another thing, the standard relates to 4 entities. So it's the brand owners are covered under the scope. Then you have the plastic producers. So this standard is only for the plastics, what categories we will cover, but plastic producers are also covered. Importers is another entity in this regulation, and the plastic waste processor is the 4th category. So these are the 4 key entities which are covered in the plastic waste management rules. In terms of the plastic categories that are covered under the standard, we have category 1, which is rigid plastic packaging, HDPE and all those things that we see in the market. Category 2 is flexible packaging. This could be monomaterial, could be multi-layer, multi-plastic material, but it has to be only and only plastic layers coming together. Then category 3 is multi-layer plastic packaging, where at least one layer of the material should be other than the plastic. So you can have paper, you can have something else, but at least one layer should be different from plastic. So that will come under the category 3. And 4 is plastic sheets or the carry bags, which are made up of compostable packaging. So these are the 4 categories which are right now defined in the scope of plastic waste management rules. The categories into which the responsibilities among the stakeholders that have been distributed is reuse, recycle, end of life disposal. End of life includes waste to energy, waste to oil and other means, and the reuse of plastic content. So these are the 4 broad categories where different stakeholders, the different entities have to play a role. We will take care of those obligations in the coming slides. Registration is mandatory under the State Pollution Control Board or Central Pollution Control Board for the producer, for the importer, for the brand owner, and also for the plastic waste processor engaged in any of these. So if you are an entity, then you also need to register on SPCB or CPCB. It depends upon different conditions. So if you are operating in more than 2 states, then probably you have to go for CPCB, but for less than that, you can go with SPCB. If you have more units in one region, like if you have 2 recycling plants or two plastic plants in one region, then you only need 1 registration with the concerned state pollution control board. So registration is mandatory. Now, what happens in this regulation is the first thing they calculate is the eligible quantity for this rules, plastic waste management rules. Eligible quantity is the amount of plastic produced or maybe used in case of brand owners in the last 2 financial years, post-consumer plus the pre-consumer. So this is A plus B. This is for the brand owners. While if you go for the producers and importers, the eligible quantity would be A plus B minus C, where C is equal to the quantity that they have shipped to the brand owner. So you remove the quantity that, so you generated some plastic, you wasted some plastic on your production shop floor, so that becomes A plus B. And then you minus what you have shipped to the brand owners. That's the eligible quantity for the producer and importer. So a producer and importer, the formula is A plus B minus C, while for the brand owner, it is only A plus B. And then they have given some of the percentages that they have to, as a minimum, they have to comply to. So suppose a brand owner is producing 100 metric ton in a year, then including pre-consumer and post-consumer. So they have to take care of 25% of the waste in the first year, 21-22. 22-23, they have to take this to 70%, and by 23-24, this has to be 100%. Now, these figures are only representatives. The tables are different for the 3 classes. For producer has a different table, importer has a different. So this is just to give you an idea how the regulation is created, because everything cannot be created in a short span of time. But this is how they have been given or assigned some responsibility to take care of the plastic waste they are generating. Then there is an obligation for recycling, which is for producer and brand owner. Importer is not there in terms of like for recycling, they have to buy the certificate, they have to buy the quantity. While for producer and brand owner, for different categories, category 1 was rigid plastics, category 2 is flexible plastic packaging material, category 3 is packaging material where at least one of the layer is non-plastic, and then category 4 compostable. So they need to make sure that in 2024, 50% of the 25% they have to take care. So they have to take care of, say, a producer, a brand owner is placing 100 metric ton, then 100 metric ton is the plastic it generates. 25% it has to take care in 21-22. And if you say this is a figure for 24-25, but if it would have been say 21, 22, then 50% of 25% he can recycle. Rest all he can use other options to dispose, like reuse or the end of life. But at least 50% of this 25% has to be done by the recycling. So producer and brand owners have to take care of the recycling as well.
Jatin, just I'd like to butt in
please.
here for a second. I see that many people have joined in late. I would just like to assure them that all your queries and all your questions will be answered in the end. I would request you all to make a note of whatever queries are. I propose to run through all the slides in the end, so that you, in case there are any queries, and in the meantime, you can start posting your queries in the chat box, because even as we go through, I'm realizing this is quite a complicated kind of subject, at least for me. I don't know about the others. So just rest assured that it's going to be taken care of, all your queries. Yeah, please, Jatin, continue.
Okay. So then there is, as I said, there are 4 categories. We have discussed 2. The first one, extended producer responsibility and recycling. Then there is a third obligation, which is for reuse. Now, the reuse obligation is only for the brand owners. This is not for producers and importers, for the obvious reason that they cannot go for the reuse of the materials. So, and it is only applicable for category 1. And as you see, there are also some targets. Can I ask everyone to
please mute yourselves, guys. Please mute yourself. Satyam, please mute yourself.
Okay. So obligation for reuse, it is only for the brand owner. A producer and importer cannot operate on this. So there are defined targets, like somewhere the brand owner has to make sure that 10% of their 25%, they have to make sure that this is from a reuse category. So 50% of 25% is from recycling, 10% say from reuse, and remaining could be end of life disposal. End of life disposal includes everything: waste to energy, road construction, waste to oil, these kind of things covers under the end of life disposal. And then there are also use of recycled plastic content. Again, this is into 3 categories, 1, 2, 3. The 4th one, not, because the 4th one is a compostable category, so it's not applicable to that. But on the rigid plastic and on the flexible plastic packaging, and for the multi-layer packaging, where one of the layer is different from the plastic, you have certain percentages where you have to use the recycled plastic into your plastic. Again, here importer has to take a different thing. Like producer and brand owner can do this, but obviously importer is importing the plastic, so he cannot ensure the use of recycled content. So what an importer needs to do is he needs to buy that amount from someone who has produced or who has done this activity in surplus. So there is also a provision where if some brand owner is doing, say, surplus recycling or surplus reuse, you can buy those things from that. So this is something that is being taken care by CPCB. So they have a portal on which they are designing all these things. So exemptions to be certified biodegradable packaging material. So biodegradable packaging material till February 2022 was out of this. I have to see what has come in the 6th of July. So for the time being, I would stick to what it is: exemptions to certified biodegradable packaging material. Provision to carry forward the shortfall forward in the succeeding year and sell off among the obligated identities. So as I said, if someone is doing a surplus in some category or is on a shortfall, they can buy and sell those quantities to among the different entities in different categories. So suppose, for example, a brand owner A has recycled 20% more than what he was supposed to, then he can use it to counter the shortfall if in the previous year. He can save it for the next year, or he can sell that 20% to someone else who can buy from it, who has a shortfall to arrest. Then there are also environmental compensations. So as it says that this regulations is based on the polluter pays principle. So if you are not adhering, then there are compensations that one has to undergo. And last thing, there will be a transparent upload by the State Pollution Control Board on fulfillment of these responsibilities by the producers, importers, and brand owners. So there is one app which has been created, but still this app will have more versions coming up. So we have to see how these things will happen, but this is what is stated under law. Now I take you the final segment, single-use plastic ban with effect from 1st July 2022. So this was, I think, the most prominent requirement to understand. So as you all know that this has been notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And this is a notification issued from 12th August 2021. So it's not new. There were timelines and everything was defined way back in 12th August 2021. What has been there is this was the notice that was put out by the Central Pollution Control Board, and it mentions everything very clearly what is banned under single-use plastics. So one thing which I would like to recommend is just stick to what is given under the law. A lot of panic is because we consider a lot of things to be SUP, which are not categorized as SUP in this amendment, in this notification. So no need to worry about those things. So in law, whatever is stated, you need to just go by it. So this is the items which are banned. Earbuds with plastic sticks. I have some pictures, so maybe you can go on this. So earbuds with plastic sticks. They have also nominated some alternatives in form of bamboo and everything. Then plastic sticks for flags, plastic flags, candy sticks. So these are the only specific categories which are banned under the SUP items. Then you have ice cream sticks, you have the thermocol, then you have plastic plates, plastic cups, plastic cutlery, plastic straws, plastic trays, wrapping or packaging film for sweet boxes. Do not extend it to anything else. Right now in the regulation, this is only what is listed. Plastic or PVC banners less than 100 microns, wrapping or packing film around the invitation cards, wrapping or packing film around cigarettes and plastic stirrers. So these are the categories which have been banned. Then there are provisions for the violators. So there are provision of closure of the units in certain cases, seizure of the products, and fine up to 20,000 rupees. So those are on different categories of violator, like producers, retailers, street vendors. Then there also have been directions issued by the CPCB to industry for compliance. So they have asked the producers itself not to supply any plastic, the originators itself to not supply any plastic raw material to producers. So they want to cut this production at the source itself, and those things have been notified by CPCB. These are the things which mostly come into the question. So packaging material made of laminates are exempted. So these are not covered under this ban. And cups, which are specifically used for dahi noodles, they are also not covered. Why they are not covered? So that's a different thing, but these are not covered. And carry bags made up of virgin or recycled plastics. So there are thickness that was updated for 30th September 21. And now it has to be raised to 120 microns in thickness from 31st December 2022. So this is all in terms of the regulations that are on plastic and printing industries. This is just newspaper headline. And with this, I close my presentation. Yeah.
Wow, super. Jatin, you have really bombarded us with a lot of data and information. And I'm sure there's going to be a million questions. So first of all, in the interim, I would like to thank you for whatever you have shared with us. And now I would like to throw the question and the answer session open. What I suggest, Jatin, is that if you could, run the slideshow again and stop at each slide, and then maybe the questions can come in. I don't see any questions in the chat box, my friend. Maybe they can maybe they can unmute themselves and then raise the questions. I do have some questions, and I'm sure so would the others. So before I start taking the questions, the 2 or 3 points which I did notice, Jatin, which if I may ask, and one of the most important of them towards the end was that this is not really applicable to packaging material. So I guess the biggest takeaway, I think, from this whole presentation is that we as packaging material suppliers in the form of cartons and similar, who use a lot of METPED, metallized polyester film, and lamination film, the main 2 categories of films that we use, besides, window patching film also. So am I right in presuming that as such, we are not majorly affected by this regulation, at
Yes,
least currently?
Yeah, so the ban does not have any implications for the packaging materials. But yes, under the plastic waste management rules, whatever directions have been given, those are something that you need to take care of. But the ban does not have any implications. Yes.
So in the sense that when you say that the ban does not have any implications, but there is plastic waste management rules. So as I would like to put it in another way, is that while we can continue to produce and manufacture all kinds of packaging which have a plastic content in them, there are certain waste management rules which we will need to understand and implement in our production facilities, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The things that I showed about recycling or say in terms of use of recycled content. So those are also applicable on the producers of those plastic packaging materials. So that will come under that category. Yes.
Great. So what we basically need to understand from whatever you are sharing with us is what is the recycled responsibility we as producers have, and how we can take steps to first analyze our past history also, because I saw that it also relates to previous years of, I think, 2020, 21 onwards. And then we need to understand what is the quantum of plastic that we are converting, and how much of what percentage of that we need to sort of be treating as recycled or something, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So if you could go back to the slideshow and
just give me
yeah.
1 minute, Tushar. Just give me.
Yeah, sure. So friends, I hope you all are ready with your questions, because unless you ask the question, we will not get answers. So please do, I mean, when I run you through the slides, or even before, if you have something, please unmute yourself and shoot. But just make sure it's one by one and we don't overlap each other.
So if I can pose a first question, I think being the members of Carton Forum, we are all producer of folding cartons which use plastic either before printing or after printing or in some other way, like window patching, etc. So the first question is, do we have a responsibility to register ourselves under the new rules? And if we have to register, then what is the liability that we will have for having used certain amount of plastic within our production facility?
Okay. Yeah, Jatin, please.
Yeah, so I think I can share my screen for that. So
Yeah,
as I said, everything goes on to how the definitions are put into the standard. So let me share the draft with you, and I take you through the definition of a producer. So if you classify into this category, then probably you have to go with this. Just give me 1 second. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Yeah, now we can.
Okay. So probably when you say you are producing packaging material, you need to understand that do you fall into this category? So it sees a person which is engaged in manufacture or import of carry bags or multi-layered packaging or plastic sheets or like, and includes industries or individual using plastic sheets or like or covers made of plastic sheets or multi-layered packaging for packaging or wrapping the commodity. So I believe that this definition is something where you will be covered because you are definitely engaged in manufacturing of the multi-layered packaging. So under this definition, you should be covered. Yep.
And what would be the, if we are covered under this, then how do you calculate our, obligation in terms of either allowing it to be reused or pay the penalty or liability, whatever? We don't know how this will span out in terms of
Okay.
folding
Okay.
carton
So
production.
normally in this I can do a dedicated session onto this as well, and but I can just give you something. So this regulation of government itself has an annexure attached to it, whereby the example they have tried to show you what could be the obligations for you. So this is like if you are producing 100 metric ton, 70 metric ton is your this responsibility target. And similarly, there are different examples which are being shared. But if you need a very specific response, maybe I can do a detailed kind of calculation, or I can create an Excel sheet where you can all work and just putting your figures, and you can calculate what is the quantity obligation you have.
Yeah, that would be great, Jatin. In fact, if you could share that Excel sheet whenever you can,
Yep.
I'm sure that will be greatly useful for all of us. So one of the questions that Mr. Kejriwal raised is about this registration. So what is the process of registration, etc.? Even later, if you could share some kind of process chart on that. And could you go to the slide where you had shown penalties, etc., for non-compliance? And then we can take the slides right from the first slide later, maybe.
I hope my presentation is visible.
Yeah, it is. I think towards the end, you had some slide on that.
Just a second. So this is for SUP ban, not for plastic waste management tools.
Okay, so this is not applicable to us.
Yeah, this is primarily not applicable to you.
Okay.
You know where you are. So if you are not in the categories of what I've listed as the SUP, then this is not applicable to you. Yes.
Okay. So do you have anything on what kind of penalties or obligations are applicable to us?
There is a different document. Just give me a second. So there are certain provisions which I can share, but the details of this I need to get maybe from the Food Processor Association.
No problem. So you can share that with us later. So if you could now start off with your first slide, which was there.
Just let me know if my screen is visible.
Yeah, now it is. So if you just do it full screen on your PPT and then go one by one. Yeah, so the next one. Now here, friends, if you see towards the bottom, Schedule 1, paper and board materials intended to come in contact with food products. There are 6 items listed. And I think from what I can understand, number 3, aluminum foil laminates for packaging. Then general purpose packing or wrapping paper, 5th folding box board, which I guess is the most relevant to us. And 6 is corrugated fiber boards. So these are basically Schedule 1 items which come in contact with food products. And many of us are using this. Anybody has any question on this, or should we go on to the next slide?
So I have 2 points to make. See, there are 2 subjects which are quite distinct. One is the direct food contact regulation, where we can use certain material, inks, coating, etc., which are prohibited or allowed under the food FSSAI rules. So that is one subject which is quite different than the new EPR rules that has been formed. So I think if we concentrate today on the second subject of plastic waste management, that will be relevant today for discussion, because food safety is something which is not connected, I believe, to the current EPR rules. So that is my view. So if everybody wants to discuss both the subjects, I am okay. But
No,
I think that today.
I think you are right, sir, because the main subject which we all need to understand is the concern for use of plastics in our factories. So I think we should stick to that. So I think we can go on to the next slide, Jatin. Second slide. Yeah, I don't think there's anything much.
This is also dealing with food safety. So
yeah,
probably this is a slide where with the environment.
Plastic waste management rules on this slide. It says.
Tushar, can I ask some question, please?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Jatin, in very simple and layman, I would like to ask. I am a printer into packaging, and I use matte pad and clear film, and in rigid plastic, rigid films also for window patching. As on date, I don't maintain any documents or any records how much I'm using. So, what should be one small or common printer's action on this new rule? How he has to maintain the records, what are his liabilities, and how he has to get the register. If you focus on these three questions, I think so many of our printers' answer will be there.
Okay. So suppose if you are producing the medpet in your factories, then as a producer, if you classify into the definition, you will have the obligations. Obligations will be primarily on the three aspects of use of recycled content, then recycling, and also on the part of end of life disposable. So as I said, you need to calculate the 2 years of production that you have done of this thing. So it's all depends upon a category wise. So this falls under category 3. So everything falling into category 3 has to be calculated together. So you have to take the average of the total production of last 2 financial years, plus the waste you have generated within your facility, maybe which is rejected or whatsoever. So pre-consumer waste. So these two quantities combined will classify as A plus P. And then whatever material you have shipped in tonnages, obviously, to the brand owners, because that's another entity, you need to cut down that thing. So that is the quantity for which you are responsible. Like that is called as a eligible quantity. And now on the eligible quantity, category wise, you have different percentages where you are responsible. So suppose we are right now in the financial year 2022, 2023, and suppose your eligible quantity comes to 100 metric ton, then you need to make sure that you take care of the 70% of that 100 metric ton, which is your liability. So when you come to 70%, what you can do with those 70%, you have two categories. One is recycling and one is end of life disposal. And in the 70%, when you go to the next table, which is obligation for recycling, which is again applicable onto the producer. So this is category 3, but right now you do not have anything listed in this. So you do not have any legal obligation. So probably you can just make sure that everything goes to end of life disposal. So right now it was not there, but has it been the year 24, 25, then 30% as a minimum, you need to make sure goes for recycling, and rest you can go for end of life disposal, which is giving that waste to a cement industry, or maybe for pyrolysis to convert into oil, or maybe for road construction.
Yeah. So here I would like to add one question. If suppose today every month I am consuming say 100 tons of paper, okay, and for that I have used say 500 kg or say 1 ton of film, lamination film, Okay. And out of that, 95% I have supplied, 5% has remained the waste. But generally, it's a practice in our print industry that all waste goes to the recycle mills for the recycling. So is this our obligation is getting over here?
No, this is a very specific question. Maybe I need to seek an answer for this. Like, I would not like to give a commitment if this is right or wrong. It seems right, but still I have to get a clear confirmation.
Because whatever our paper waste get generated, we just don't throw it. We collect it, and this has been taken by waste buyers and they give to paper mills for recycling.
So this is only paper you're talking of?
Yeah, we are talking about packaging industry where we use paperboard.
No, so if paperboard is anyways exempted from this laws, like it doesn't fall into any of the 4 categories, right?
Okay, fine.
No, he also means the multi-layer packaging. So what he means is that when we use lamination film, which is
embedded on paper,
it's embedded on paper as a surface laminate, and then the printing, punching, etc. And at the end of it, there is a certain amount of, say, 10% odd of the total material, which comes out as a wasted scrap. Now that wasted scrap, which is a multi-layer scrap, which is majorly paper and partly plastic surface film, is disposed of to the scrap dealer, which in turn, they send it to the recycled paperboard mills. So is this end of our responsibility, or there is something more than this?
Yeah, so if you're saying that you have some waste which you send to the recycling facilities, then if your question is your obligation met? Right? That's your question.
Yeah.
So in that way, yes, because ultimately you are not the recyclers. You have to just ship the quantity. But the thing is, here in this thing, everything has to be documented and uploaded onto CPCB. So everything, like normally these recycling facilities, now what I know, because we are also not a brand owner, but from my interactions with brand owner, what I know is they release a certificate of the quantity that they have disposed for you, or the recycled for you. So they will give you a certificate, and that has to be uploaded to this CPCB thing to clear your entire thing process. So the documentation is very crucial here.
Yeah. So basically, if when we are disposing of this waste, we have to ensure that we get a document which is a valid document for the purpose of uploading on this CPCB and SPCB. Yeah. So
documentation is definitely the key here, because everywhere you have these registrations, you have the CPCB portal where you have to upload everything, and everything has to be transparently communicated. So documentation definitely, as per plastic waste management rules, will play a key role.
So another question I have here is this percentage is what you have mentioned. Can you give us a concrete example of how it works? So if I were to lead you on that, so for example, if there is a converter, a printer and converter like us, who say consumes 100 tons of paperboard in a whole year, and say, like Nitin Bhai said, say another 1 ton, 1000 kgs of plastic film. So the total material is, say, 101 tons, out of which he converts and sells that material to his buyer, which is, say, for example, 80 tons. And the balance 21 tons, he sells off as scrap to the recycled person lifting the scrap. So now when you talk of these percentages of 25% in 21, 22, and so on and so forth, what percentage does this apply to? I mean, can you just sort of guide us on that?
Yeah, so probably I'll not here be able to give a commitment, because this is not an area where I would have my expertise.
I understand that.
But I can give you from my understanding, but maybe you can just I've taken the notes of these questions, and I can talk to some of my people in the brand owners, and I can give you the specific answers over a mail with all calculations. But right now, just to give the answer on basis of my understanding. So suppose, first of all, it's not, you should not consider your plastic and the metallized film separately. It's a category wise the calculation is done. So finally, whatever you you are calculating as a met pet, that quantity will be considered. So suppose you generated 100 metric ton, and then suppose 80 metric ton you have shipped to the brand owners, then your eligible quantity is only and only 20 metric ton. Okay. Now in 20 metric ton, you have two disposable means. One is the recycling and one is end of life disposal. So if suppose the table says 25% in this particular year, this means that 25% of 20 metric ton has to go for recycling as a minimum. You can do more, but minimum would be this one. And rest, you can go for an end of life disposal, which could be simply shipping it to a cement industry to just incinerate it or whatsoever, road construction, or there are different means to that. But minimum for recycling is specified. You can go more than that. If you do more than, it will be a surplus, which you can use for next year or last year shortfall and so on and so forth.
Great. So basically it means that these percentages are on the net wastage that you get after you have sold off your material. So just to repeat, and for better clarity for myself and for the others, if you are converting 100 tons of material in a whole year and you have sold off 80 tons, the percentage responsibility of recycling is only on the balance 20 tons. Now, one more question which comes to my mind here is that we are talking only of plastic recycling, right? Multi-layer recycling.
Yep.
So out of the 100 tons which anybody may be converting in a whole year, only say, for example, 20 tons may be a multi-layer plastic. So I guess the rule would apply only to the net of the 20 tons. So if, for example, in that multi-layer 20-ton material that he has used and he has shipped out to the brand owner 15 tons, then the waste percentage responsibility is only on the balance 5 tons.
Yeah, if you have shipped, as you can see, this is the definition of eligible quantity. It says shall be the average weight of plastic packaging material category wise. So important thing is you have to do everything on a category wise calculation. Sold in last 2 financial year plus average quantity of pre-consumer plastic packaging waste in last 2 financial year minus the annual quantity supplied to the entities. Entities means the other entity which also cover brand owners covered under sub-clause 4 in the previous financial year. So you subtract what you have given to the brand owner, and then whatever is remaining is your responsibility. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Jatin, one small question here again for further clarification for everyone. I have used paper, say, of 100 ton, and plastic is only of 500 kgs. In that case, how the calculation takes place?
So that's what I'm saying. This is a question which is very specific. So I'll try to get more clarity on this. For me, it's all about the calculation is on a packaging material. So if your final packaging material is 100 metric ton, then your responsibility is 100 metric ton. This is my interpretation of the law, because it talks about the multi-layer plastic packaging category as a category. So it doesn't make a distinction how much plastic you're using and how much paper. So for me, it will be the plastic that you are generating, the final packaging what you are generating. But maybe I'll get more clarity just to be sure.
Okay.
And yeah.
One more question. There is a chain of buyers or suppliers of waste material. Okay, we sell it to scrap dealer. Scrap dealer may send it to A mill, B mill, C mill, D mill. We don't know to whom he is selling. Okay. So in this case, how many stakeholders has to get registered or involved, or documentation, whatever documentation, I am selling the scrap for a recycle. What documentation I need to do it, because I sold it to scrap dealer for recycle. Now further what he is doing, I am not aware. So in this case, what has to be done?
Yeah, so as per the law, you can only have recyclers which have registered. So as you see here, your plastic waste processor, which are engaged in recycling, waste to energy, waste to oil, or industrial composting, they also need to register. So as per these laws, you can only work with players who are registered and who knows what to do with that material. And there is an SOP which I can share on how to take care of these things, like what documents are required. So I think there is Aadhaar card, your GST to get the registration. And then there is an SOP, how you fill the data and how you get the certificates. So maybe that I can share separately with you. I've not gone through that because we were not required to, but I have that thing and I can share with you that thing.
So it means the scrap dealer also need to be registered.
Yes, the waste processor needs to be.
And he also need to share the data where he is selling the scrap, what he is purchasing from us.
Yeah, so the idea is to directly connect with the blast waste processor. So right now, as per the regulation, if you go through the entire regulation, there is just you supply this material directly to a recycling plant or the cement industry, and they need to be registered. So I don't think if there is a provision of middlemen, or if there is a provision, then how to take care of this. At least this is not very clearly reflected in the laws as of now.
Okay.
Nitin bhai, just one, Nikhil, yeah.
Actually, Nikhil, hang on. Can I request you to hang on because Mr. Manoj Nair has been raising his hand for a long time. Just take you up after that. Yes, Mr. Manoj, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Jatin. I'm Manoj from TCPL, VP Technical and HR. I have a couple of questions. One is in the definition, like fairly covered producer, importer, brand owner. But I don't see where this granule suppliers, plastic granule suppliers, and film manufacturers are covered. If film manufacturers are also covered in this, and if they are taking care of the liability, then it should not come to the producers, right? So that is point number one. And point number two is, let's say any company is exporting, let's say with the plastic material, it can be a multi-layered plastic material which they are exporting. So that liability also will come to the producer or not? That is point number two. And one more thing is, like I see year-wise, now it is showing that in 22-23, the liability is close to about 70%, because 21-22 is over. So that means that the registration also has to be done, as well as the 70% liability will also come into the producer's account. So these three questions I thought that ask you together.
Okay. So as I said, the definition is clear here. If you are producing, it says in manufacturing of multi-layered packaging. If that's the definition you are covering yourself into, then only you will be classified. Now, the thing is that with the law, it's all about the interpretation. I know that if the film manufacturers are taking care of, because I heard a discussion, then the liability will not be with you, because it's only about who is classifying themselves as the producer. So if you classify yourselves as the producer, then it's fine. If you classify yourself not to be the producer and you want to shift the responsibility to the film manufacturer, then they need to do it. But someone has to take the accountability. And how this is done in a practical aspect, this is probably the packaging industry must be knowing more. I just go through the regulation and I can tell you what regulation says. Yeah.
Yeah, and about export, like if anybody is exporting,
export-oriented units are exempted from this. That's
not export-oriented unit, but the unit which is exporting material, which could be a multi-layer, like metped laminated carton, if I'm supplying to some other country. So in that also the plastic content goes, but the liability comes to us, or how it's going to?
No, if you are exporting the material, I think that is clearly exempted from this regulation to the best of my knowledge. Yep.
Okay, and then this year it's going to be 70% liability of whatever difference comes in?
Yes, and maybe one thing more which I'm also not sure of, but this needs to be checked, that the responsibility of last year will be combined to this or not, because I think this portal will take your registration from the time you are into the business, or 1 year later from your business manufacturer. So since TCPL has been manufacturing for years, so probably that thing has to be taken care of.
Okay, but that, okay, thank you.
Yeah, Manoj, anything more?
No, like it looks like the granule manufacturer and film manufacturer have actually got away from this whole segment. Looks like.
Yeah, Nikhil. Yeah, thanks. Nikhil, please shoot. Nikhil Warrior, are you there?
Yeah. No, I just wanted clarity there, because see, we are not selling directly to the recyclers, right? Means there are people, we are selling actually to the scrap dealers, and they are in turn giving it to the paper mills, right? So we are not actually selling scrap to a recycler in that sense.
So Nikhil, from whatever is given in the regulation, I think the key to this is whoever you sell to, you need to get a certificate of whatever you have sold, which is valid as per the Pollution Control Board norms and which you can upload to the site. So even if you are selling to a normal, apna jo local scrap dealer hota hai,
Exactly. Yeah.
he has to be registered on the portal and he should be able to give you a certificate. I think that is the key to this. Rather than you may be selling to your next door scrap dealer, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so even he has to get registered.
Yes.
तो जो अभी कचरा उठा के लेके जाता है,
जो अभी कचरा उठा के लेके जाता है, जिसको आप बेच रहे हो, उसको आपको सेल कर सर्टिफिकेट लेना पड़ेगा.
So Jatin, you're clear now. He's not a recycler. He's just he takes my scrap and gives it to the paper mill. As far as the definition is concerned. So we are only talking paperboard laminated with film, right? Tushar, that's it. Not the regular, not anything else. Only the scrap, paperboard laminated scrap.
Yeah, so of course we will all have to, from whatever I understand, we will all have to maintain proper records of the quantities which are multi-layer laminated, etc., etc. And obviously a lot of work needs to be done on this. One more question which comes to my mind, Jatin, is that many of us, we make pure plastic cartons, PP sheets, for example. We use a lot of PP sheets, polypropylene sheets, which are just printed and converted into cartons, which are not multi-layer. They are just a single layer plastic. So what happens to that?
So this covers under this flexible plastic packaging. If this is what, so I'm just sharing the definition and then you can see if your product classifies into this. Flexible plastic packaging of single layer. So if this is what you are talking about, then this is covered in category 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what flexible.
So it's
exactly
plastic.
means
It's plastic. Like if you are talking about PP, if you're just talking PP of a single layer used for packaging, then you fall into category 2.
Okay, great. Any more questions, anybody?
I think Sanjeev Das wants to speak. Sanjeev Das.
I think Mr. Kejriwal has something and then we'll take up Sanjeev.
Okay.
Just wanted to know if any of our member has registered themselves under the PWR rule. So they will be able to enlighten us better.
Yeah, so if anybody has, please raise your hand. Meanwhile, Sanjeev, if you could come up with your question, unmute yourself.
Yeah, more than a question, I just wanted to sort of summarize my understanding of what is being discussed over here today. So in summary, what we are saying is basically the waste that is generated in a multi-layer packing, only that quantity of waste has to be disposed of to a registered scrap dealer. And you need to get yourself registered and just share the data with them in the required formats. And as far as that is concerned, your obligation is taken care of. Whether we are selling it, what material we are selling, by whether it be by way of export or in the local market, that gets minus from whatever we have purchased. So as what we are finally talking about is the scrap value. Is that what the understanding ends at?
Yes, Jatin, could you?
Yeah, so I think that's the understanding, that ultimately it's on the polluters pay principle. That is what it is said. So if you are generating some waste, you just need to make sure that is disposed of. The responsibility is among different stakeholders. How you do it, that's not an issue, but you need to have appropriate documentation to show that the amount of waste you have generated, the amount of waste you have disposed. So you just need to be ready with the documentation to show that you met your extended producer responsibility.
Great, fantastic. Satyen Patel, please unmute yourself and raise your question.
Yes, Tushar bhai, thanks. So this is just want to.
Your voice is not coming through clear, Satyen. If you could just type your question in the chat box, I'll pose it. Satyen, your voice is not clear. Please pose your question in the chat box and I'll raise it here. Anybody else? No, Satyen, your voice is not clear at all.
Okay, Jatin, one small question over here.
Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you, but it's not clear, Satyen. So please put your question in the chat box so that I can raise it.
It's not the question, it's about register.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, whatever you want to ask.
Hello, can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yeah, we can. Now you're on mute. Anyway, anybody else has any question? Because we're running out of time now.
Jatin, I need to ask one question here. Yeah, very simple question. Suppose I'm selling this plastic used scrap to the scrap dealer who is also registered, correct? So my responsibility over here, what he's doing with this material?
No, you need to have that certificate. So hopefully, if it is a registered scrap dealer, then
that's what I must. That's what I'm. If
yeah,
he's a
but
registered.
in terms of that, once you have your certificate, you have the documentation that you have shifted the amount that was required for your responsibility to the next stakeholder in the supply chain. Then you are covered with it, because it's then their responsibility to make sure that they dispose of in the right manner.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, just sort of interjecting here. So the certificate will be given by this registered scrap dealer, is it, to the printer who has sold the scrap to him?
This is, I have to check. This comes through CPCP portal, or the dealer directly gives you this. I'll check. So there is an SOP on this. I have not gone through that because I never felt the need of going through it, but I can share that SOP that have everything to do with registrations and how you get the certificates, how do you shift the surplus and everything. So I can share that. Yeah.
Right. So in response to Mr. Kejriwal's question, if any of us have registered, Satyen Patel of Param Packaging has answered that they have applied for plastic waste management and are awaiting the certificate. So Satyen, I would request you here that if you could, could make a synopsis of what is the process you followed, and if possible, share it on the Carton Forum chat. It would be a great help and service to all of us.
Tushar, I think so. Manish is also there from Param Packaging.
Yeah, Manish is
the
also
answer.
there.
He has the answer. Manish,
okay, Manish, please. Unmute? Yeah, unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm sorry I don't have an answer for this. I have a question that I need to pose to Jatin.
No problem.
Okay, so I'll just introduce myself. I'm Manish from Param Packaging. I take care of the tech part of it. Okay, so Jatin, the question is that since we produce for brand owners, right? And the waste that we generate is incidental to what we produce. So we are not a producer like a Cosmo who's manufacturing films and selling in the market, right? So the waste part of it, or whatever scrap that we generate, is that our responsibility? Does it fall under our responsibility? Because that's incidental to production. It's a very fundamental question. I just want to get some clarity.
So I think it totally depends if you classify yourself as a producer. If you do classify yourself as a producer, then it becomes your responsibility by default. If you do not classify yourself to be a producer and shifts it to the film manufacturer, then it's their responsibility. Then you anyways are exempted.
So Manish, if you see in this document which is shared earlier, and anyway we'll try to reshare it on the Carton Forum, the producer has a very specific definition. And to my understanding, almost all of us would be classified as producers of multi-layer packaging.
So maybe what I have done is I've taken 5 things with me, and I'll put this. I'll talk to someone who is more knowledgeable in this respect, and probably is also a recycler. And I'll try to give these 5 understandings, which I think are the most important question. First, do we classify ourselves to be the converter or to be the producer or not? And if not, can this responsibility shift to the film manufacturer? I think that was one question where absolute clarity is needed. Second is, if there is like we are in the second year, and if there is a percentage which was applied to us, what happens to that percentage? Does that add it to this year percentage or what? Third, if we have someone as a scrap dealer, so if we are taking an indirect route, is there a loophole in the law, or what needs to be done? And fourth is the SOP of registration and how to get these certificates. And fifth is an Excel sheet doing a calculation based example to you that if this is your responsibility, how you can dispose and meet your obligations. So these are the 5 things that I've taken note of. So I'll try to get more clarity, because I just go with the regulations. But what are the practical aspects? Maybe I also need to speak to some more people to get
great, Jatin.
I think to all your questions, what you have taken
one last question which has come up from Satyen Patel is that if the brand owner whom we sell to does not meet the obligation, then are we as a producer to take this responsibility? Not at all, right? Okay, great.
No.
Manish,
for everyone there is a calculation, and they have to do their independent calculation. So once you have sent the 80 metric ton out of 100 metric ton generated, then those 80 80 metric ton is the responsibility of brand
not
owner.
our
So you do your calculation and you stick to your calculation.
Manish, your hand is still raised. Any more questions or that's it?
No, I'm done. I'm so sorry. I'll just lower
Yeah,
it.
no problem. Anybody else, or we are coming to the
So-
end of this session?
I just
yeah.
want to say a few things from whatever we have done for the benefit of all members. See, first and foremost, the question which I asked, and we have also asked the same question to several people, and we have been clearly given a legal opinion by one of the foremost lawyer firms that every carton manufacturer who produces or uses film in any form on his paperboard will have to be registered. There is no way about it as per the legal opinion. So whether you are, disposing of to the scrap or you are selling to the brand owner, but you will have to register yourself. And once you register, you have to go online. And when you go on filling all the parameters of usage, quantity, etc., automatically there is a liability generated. How that liability will be taken care of either by the brand owner, scrap dealer, or yourself is not clear as yet. But I think once you fill up that form or online and you say that you are using, say, X amount of plastic, not the paper as we understand, then the whole calculation will come and show a liability, that how much is the liability in terms of rupees. That is what we understand. And we have not registered ourselves, but we are in the process. And we are preparing all the data for last year, this year, and we will be registering ourselves because I think legally there is no escaping from that situation. That's my understanding.
Okay.
And our thought that it is only towards scrap generated is wrong as far as the law is concerned. The moment we use any plastic as a layer on the paperboard, then we'll be considered as a producer and we'll have to register ourselves.
Okay. Thank you very much. Obviously, all these entails that all of us need to work on this subject a lot more. And thanks to Nitin Bhai and Tejas Tanna in the Carton Forum, we have been able to touch upon this subject. And I think we've just touched upon it because it's a whole sea and we really need to dive deep into it. I can just think and probably assure all the members of the Carton Forum on the behalf of the BMPA as well, that we shall definitely get working on this. We will some consultant or somebody who can help us, maybe Mr. Kejriwal or maybe Param Packaging, Sanjay or somebody who are already working on it can help us do this, because this is a very, very serious subject which none of us can afford to ignore. As we all know that pollution is the buzzword with the international community as well. And many of our clients are then going to start asking us for this, without which they may not just, enlist us on the panel of vendors. So I would like to thank Mr. Jatin Takkar and Siegwerk for giving us this session. It's been an eye-opener and it's really opened our eyes wide and we cannot afford to shut it. We shall certainly hope and wait for the 5 documents that you are going to be sharing with us, which we shall then immediately share with our members. I would once again reiterate that all the members, you please keep your eyes open. Please raise your questions on the Carton Forum chat and send us your mail, etc. And share whatever knowledge you get, because this is something, a very, very important thing which has hit us and we again cannot afford to ignore it. Thank you very much.
My
Thank
request,
yes,
I would like to request Ramesh ji, humble request, Ramesh ji, if you can share the process of registration, that it will helpful to all the members.
Nitin Bhai, we are in the process of, first of all, learning the entire process. We have done some work. The work is going on at full speed, where a lot of people in the company are involved. And I'm sure by the end of this month, we will be able to understand more. And if whatever learnings we have, definitely I will share it with the forum.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
So-
much. Yes, Nidbhai, I would request you to say your final thank you words and then close the session.
So I would like to thank Team Siegwerk, Ramakanji, Dhirenji, and Jatin Takkarji for having us a very much detailed seminar on the waste management. It is really very much helpful to us. And I will request further, whatever information you gathered and you have taken out some questions, please share at the earliest. And we will request also if you can share further processes of the registration and all, if whenever you can, it will be helpful to all of us. Thank you very much once again. And I request everyone, shall we continue our meeting or should we call off? Because I want Ramakanji and his team to call off. The rest of us can remain.
Yeah, I think we can remain, and thank you again, Team Siegwerk.
Thank you, Tushar bhai. We look forward to having such sessions in future as well, whenever you need fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tusharji, thank you, Nitinji, and all the BMP
Thank you.
members as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.